You may have heard me talk about my father, but some of my earliest memories are more so of my father than my mother. But that's because when you get accolades, you tend to remember those a lot more. You remember them just as much as failures. And I remember very early on, I got a lot of accolades from my dad. He loved to tout and show off his little brilliant genius son. And that's just one of those things. When I was recently with my family, they reminded me that hello, Governor. It's Rick Newfoundlandville. And I'm here to talk about The Bear, Season 4, Episode 6-8. So you're going to have to bear with me. Now I'm going to talk about that relentless, undeniable truth that hangs over all of our heads. Time. You ever felt that invisible clock ticking in the background? Now, whether it's a looming deadline or just a fleeting opportunity or just the awareness that time is running out, there's always that unsettling feeling that there is always a clock and that we're running out of time. Now, the thing about a clock is it can be a source of immense pressure. It can lead to procrastination or even paralysis. But if you embrace this truth and you actually understand the urgency, it could be the key to unlocking your greatest focus and your most decisive action. Now I'm going to talk about 3 episodes. So we're in season 4 of The Bear. So I'm going to talk about episode 6, which is Sophie. I'm going to talk about episode 7, which is Bears, and episode 8, which is Green. 3 different episodes, but I'm going to try to weave them together. Now, even though there's a desperate push for success, the clock is looming, and we've watched every episode how the clock has continued to dwindle. Even though there's intense deadlines, we see the consequences of delayed action, and we see the effects that is having on the people within the bear. Let's rethink your relationship with time. And I know I'm speaking to you, but this is for me too. Trust. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, conquering procrastination, and we're going to discuss how to harness that ticking clock so that you can make every moment count. Let me tell you a little story. You may have heard me talk about my father, but some of my earliest memories are more so of my father than my mother. But that's because when you get accolades, you tend to remember those a lot more. You remember them just as much as failures. And I remember very early on, I got a lot of accolades from my dad. He loved to tout and show off his little brilliant genius son. And that's just one of those things. When I was recently with my family, they reminded me that my dad, he would prop me up like some little figure on a game show and have me spell every word imaginable in words far beyond my understanding or grasp that I should not know how to say, let alone spell, give you the meaning in a sentence. But I did. But I remember when the real difficulty started between him and my mom. Everyone tells me that I look like my mom more than my dad. And I know my rebellious nature at times reminds him a lot of my mom. My mom's 4'11" fire plug. She didn't take no shit. And I went very quickly from being a son who was doted on and marveled at for his intelligence to being ignorant and an idiot, and I wasn't going to amount to shit. And it's just the verbal abuse was nonstop. And that's not to mention the emotional and mental abuse as well as the physical abuse, but the mental part, the verbal, it was relentless. And even though I didn't know it at the time, but it had a profound effect on me, and I changed the way that I acted. I changed the way that I saw myself. And I knew I was smarter than every kid at my school, but I didn't want to show it. I got to the point where I became a huge procrastinator. I waited till the last minute to do everything. And I only did it in that pressure cooker because I knew it had to be done. So let me go ahead and knock it out. If I did it earlier, I probably could have done a better job, but it doesn't matter because my good enough was still good enough to be better than everyone else's. So why push myself for absolute excellence? And one thing I knew was that I could function very well under pressure, thrive in it, almost preferred it. But I didn't realize until I got older that that was a symptom of my PTSD. I had this unsettling fear about being good enough, about being smart enough. I felt like an imposter all the time, like I was a fraud. I always felt weird around my peers because the people who were really, really intelligent like I was, they spoke differently than I spoke. And they weren't interested in a bunch of shit I wasn't interested in. I didn't care about the damn vector of the moon or the most intricate parts of Star Trek ship or, NASA launch. I didn't give a shit about that. Now you want to talk about the X-Men? I'm that dude. I tell you everything about it. You want to talk about books? You want to talk about comics? You want to talk about movies, TV? That was my shit. I found refuge in music. But being around the other really smart kids, we didn't have anything in common. Hell, I played sports. They would, tear their ACL playing chess. It was some different shit. It wasn't until I got older and got therapy that I realized I don't need the pressure to thrive. But it took a lot of therapy to get here, to overcome that fear and just try to figure out, who was I? Could I even exist if there wasn't any pressure? Let's talk about it. Hello, Governor. It's Rick new from the Ville. And we're here to talk about The Bear, Season 4, Episode 6, Sophie, Episode 7, Bears, and Episode 8, Green. Now, you may see, or you may have seen from the last few videos I've been doing, I'm trying to do something different, trying to change up how I give you the information. So I'm not going to really do a recap anymore. I will talk about the episode as I'm going through my points that I want and the information I want to give you. Now, if you like that, cool. If you don't, drop me a comment. Either way, drop me a comment. Drop me a comment and tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you miss, what you think I should try new. I'm open. Just let me know. Now, you know that I love my quotes, and I have two. Now, the first one is unknown, and it is fear, F-E-A-R, has two meanings. The first one is forget everything and run. And the second one is face everything and rise. You choose. And the second quote is from Peter Marshall. And he says, when you long for a life without difficulties, remember that oak trees grow tall and strong in contrary winds, and diamonds form under pressure. I'm going to call this particular media therapy deep dive, There's Always a Clock. Now, probably the biggest thing out of this particular episode, the first one anyway, Sophie, was that Sid got the phone call right at the end of the last episode that her father's in the hospital. And, when you get a phone call that your loved one is in the hospital, they don't tell you all the information over the phone. So she gets to the hospital in a panic, feeling guilty because she's ignored her father's phone call for a while. Just so happens that she runs into Claire. She finds out that her father's doing better, that he's not out of the woods, but he's doing okay. And she breaks down. She breaks down at guilt over the relationship that she had with her father. And it's about doing what Carmi's trying to do right now. Like, he went to Claire's house earlier in a few episodes ago. He had a long talk with Sydney. The only person he really needs to talk to, he hasn't talked to, is Richie. But he's trying to repair things because you never know. That guilt that hangs over Carmi now about not fixing things with Mikey. So Sydney's feeling that guilt now, that she may lose her dad. And everything she says, it comes off real selfish. Because really in the moment, while you're worrying about that other person laying in the bed, you're not thinking about them. You're thinking about what is that going to do to your life? If they pass and go to the upper room and you still here, then you have to deal with the grief that they're gone. You have to deal with not saying what should have been said. And even though she's not on the outs with her father, she knows that her father worries about her all the time. And she feels guilty about that because she feels like, well, maybe if he worried about himself a little bit more, he would be a little bit healthier and he wouldn't have had a stroke or a heart attack. You know, there was a couple of episodes ago where Ibrahim had a real good talk with Carmi, talking about windows of opportunity. And he felt like he wasn't creating opportunity. And that led him to Albert Schnurr, a consultant, who suggests to Ibrahim the most profitable, the best thing happening at the Bear right now is the window that sells the sandwiches of the beef out the window. So don't think big like the Bear, think small. Let's get some more little takeout windows, not a full restaurant, just takeout windows, and let's replicate. Let's think small, replicate the beef. But it's about those opportunities. The clock is ticking. The life of the Bear is in the balance and we're running out of time. You know, the thing about this episode is it makes everyone focus in on the relationships that they need to repair. You may not have the time. Richie has a fit and he goes to Jess and talks about he's really has this anxiety about going to his ex-wife Tiff's wedding just because he's got this thing with Tiff's new husband-to-be, Frank, played by Josh Hartnett. And he feels like he is fighting for the relationship with his daughter. Because Frank is rich, successful, and Richie just got on his journey to get his shit together. And the thing is, no one stopped to ask how much Mikey's death hurt Richie. And then when things start to happen and they start to go on a negative slide, that affects everything else around you. Because then that exacerbated and made the relationship with his wife at the time with Tiff worse. And Richie just tried to pick up his life and keep coming into the beef and keep doing what he's supposed to be doing. But he was hurting, he was dying inside. You know, talking about fixing relationships before it's time, Sugar, Natalie, gets super pissed with Neil because he invited his sister Francine to the wedding. And Natalie and Francine have a long-standing beef. But the funny thing about it is every time that Natalie talks about it, all she says is she know what she did. Maybe neither one of them know what they did. You know, Carmi was avoiding going to this wedding. He really didn't want to go because he didn't want to run into his mother. You know, he's not really seen his mother at all in quite a while. And every time he sees her, it's bad. And he can't deal. And he's at the point where he's vulnerable. He's fragile right now. And adding his mama to his mix and to the chaos that is his life would seriously derail the healing journey he's trying to go on. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to isolate yourself and take yourself out of bad, chaotic situations. If it's not serving you, if it's not serving your peace, you have to remove yourself from the situation sometimes if you can't remove that situation from you. The most important part of this particular episode, and I'm talking about episode 7 now, Bears, is we are at the wedding. So Tiff is getting married to Frank. Carmi decided to go. They figure he may run into his mom, but if he was going to continue to heal, was he going to forget everything and run? Because that's what he normally does. Or was he going to face everything and rise? He had to make a choice. Now, the thing about family is we carry our past with us. Our family history, our own insecurities, along with some that may be passed, not only through DNA, but some that you just, family secrets, family trauma. You keep it with you, and it's an invisible chain that could actually prevent you from achieving your highest potential. The thing about it is it's not always external. Sometimes it's internal. You have fear inside of you. And it could be failure, judgment, repeating patterns. And sometimes the worst of all is you could fear success itself. I know several people that have led themselves to successful positions and then went out of their way to sabotage themselves because deep down they felt like they weren't worthy of what they've been given. Not what they've been given, what they've earned. They earned that promotion, that job, that relationship, whatever, and they went out of their way to sabotage it. A lot of times you could say it's self-fulfilling prophecy. You talk bad, you talk negatively over your life long enough, and exactly everything that you feared will come to fruition on your ass because you talked it into existence. But that is born out of fear. There is a great scene in this episode where everyone piles under what seems at first, because in the episode it seems like it's a regular table with some snacks or cake or something on it, and Richie's daughter's on the table, and Frank can't get her to come out. And he turns to Richie, and Richie and Frank have a really good talk about their fears about each other. And it wasn't until Richie talked to Jess that he even decided that he was going to come and he was going to let all this go. So he changed perspective, and he had a really good talk with Frank. And their daughter said, I need y'all to come up under here with me. So they came up under there. They went under the table to make her feel more comfortable. But it wasn't before long before more people started filing in. It was like, hey, what's everybody doing under here? Carmi went, Claire went, the Facts, Francine, Sugar, like everyone. I was like, how big is this damn table? It's the longest table in the world. The whole family was under the table. Marcus and his roommate Chester, like everybody was on the table. Staj, everyone was on the table. Luca. And the thing was, Richie's daughter, she was deathly afraid of dancing. And she knew that there was going to be like a daddy-daughter dance, or she was going to be expected to dance with Frank. And she desperately did not want to. So they went around under the table and everyone talked about their fear. And actually was quite illuminating. A lot of people talking about their fear. Once they said it out loud and put it out there, it just felt like, I don't even know why I was afraid of that. Especially as everyone else came together and reassured each other, you don't have to be afraid of that. You're not by yourself. It's another thing. Even with family, even with people in the next room, sitting on the couch next to you, a lot of times you feel like what you're suffering from, you're suffering alone. Because you could be in the unfortunate situation to be with someone who takes your fears, takes your anxieties, takes your insecurities for granted because they can't see them. Those are the worst ones, the ones that you feel, the ones that are in your head, the mental ones. This episode is good because it allows people to talk about those fears and get them off their chest and break this long chain of family dysfunction. Now, that doesn't mean that the family will no longer be dysfunctional. It does not mean that. But sometimes to get over hurdles, you have to face the hurdle. You cannot fix a problem that you refuse to face. It's James Baldwin. The last episode we're going to talk about is green. And green can mean a lot of things, but green usually means go. It's like red means stop, green means go. But after the last episode where we talked about all these fears and these insecurities, green, meaning go, also like the system that they have in the kitchen, means it's time to move forward. So in moving forward, Sydney calls Shapiro and tells him she's not going to take the offer at his new restaurant that he was setting up and pretty much waiting for her. She did him kind of dirty, for real. She done led him on and everything. She even sat down and did some paperwork with, like, everything looked like she was taking a job. She was leaving the bear, especially since the bear only has at this point about 2 weeks left until it's done. He hears the news over the phone and he doesn't react well, as you may assume. He reacts negatively, and yeah, he's pissed. And he's like, she's way too talented to be on a sinking ship like the bear. And I get it. Carmi's magnificent, but you know, just because you are a wonderful cook does not mean that you can run a restaurant. Sometimes your lane is to be here. And unless you got the right people in place, sometimes what you do, if you're a chef, do that, be a chef. But to be a chef and run the restaurant and do all these other things, sometimes it's not what you do. And it's a lot when you step into that position of authority, when you step up and you're him or her, you got to make the decisions. Sometimes it doesn't sit well with people. And the thing is that we know that Carmi, Sydney, even Richie work extremely well under pressure, because that is the dysfunction of the bear. That was the dysfunction of the beef. They work well under pressure. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be less chaotic? Absolutely. Have things gotten better? Yes. Natalie even sits down with the computer to go over the finances. But he says, listen, everything looks better. It does. But if you continue, you're going to struggle, because the real question you need to ask yourself is, why leave this place open? Why? The numbers say you're probably better off closing. Richie has a heart-to-heart with Jess, where he tells her about Mikey. She asks him questions and he opens up a little bit about Mikey. And the thing that's hard to hear is, we always hear cousin Richie, but he's not really a cousin. But that's the thing about found family. He is cousin Richie. He is family. And Mikey was his best friend. And his best friend unalived himself. And Richie doesn't really know why either. And it hurt. Every day it hurts. And that's a pain that he hasn't been able to get past, that he hasn't been able to deal with. Remember when I said Jess gave Tina the task of getting down to 3 minutes? Tina has been struggling getting to this goal. She's getting close, but she's still a long ways off. So she goes to Luca for help. And he said, we work in a high pressure environment, but you're letting the pressure debilitate you. And he tells a story about how when he was working for Carmi, his job was to sear the lamb. It was either lamb or wagyu. I think it was wagyu. But he had only minutes to do it. And the thing is, he said when he was at home, he could sear anything, whatever. He would buy all sorts of different cuts of meat to practice and to get it right. And he was successful every time. But when he got in the restaurant, and when Carmi needed it right now, he couldn't get it. And it's because he let that pressure get to him. And he told Tina, you need to let it stop harming you, and you need to harness it. Just work. Just do what you do. The clock doesn't exist. You're so busy watching yourself, clocking yourself. Just do the task. You are fantastic. Just do it. You know, the thing is, you think about people who thrive under pressure, and you look at this episode and you see Carmi. Well, Carmi has this relentless anxiety. Will he find a new outlet? Will Sid be able to maintain her drive without the adrenaline of always being on the brink of madness? Will Richie's disciplined focus hold without the constant external threats? The thing is, when you get comfortable in pressure, when it's not there, it becomes uncomfortable. It becomes a void. Do you really need it to exist, to excel, to be successful? You know, a lot of people think of thriving under pressure. I know I did. Think of that thriving under pressure as a skill. It's not. It means that you have become accustomed to working in an unhealthy mode of existence. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The end of the episode, we see Carmi go over to Donna's. She wanted some box of pictures or something. He really didn't want to go, but he knew that his best bet was to go face it. Will you face the fears that exist in your life? Can you exist? Can you thrive without the pressure? Because there's always a clock, and we're all running out of time. This is Rakai Steed, new from the Ville. Make sure to like this, share this as much as possible. Leave me some comments about this particular episode, or these 3 episodes, really. So what did you think about Sophie, about Bears, about Green? What did you think about this format? Can you thrive without the pressure? What are your fears? And if for some reason you haven't subscribed yet, it's okay. I just need you to hit the button, leave me a comment, but hit the button, subscribe, and then watch some of the other videos and find something that resonates with you. Remember, at the end of the day, it's all about this, but even more importantly, it's about this.